About 2 years ago, I started dehydrating food for camping trips in this Hamilton Beach 5-tray dehydrator. I'm going to go over that in this video, along with what foods I've learned that I like to dehydrate and what a hypothetical meal plan would be for a week-long trip. So first of all, the dehydrator, Hamilton Beach, it's widely available, quite affordable, 5-year warranty. So that's hard to argue with. I'm good with it. It's easy to use, set temperature and time very easily at 5-degree Fahrenheit intervals. The one thing that was a bit of a nuisance is that the trays, they can accommodate this little grate for finer things if you don't want it falling through the wide grates of the normal trays, as well as one solid insert. So this one, you can do like fruit roll-up trays in it, but there's only one of each. And I found them very difficult to find online. I've got pasta sauce going in here, as you can see, and they're dirty because I just finished doing like 20 pounds of veggie curry, probably another 15 to 20 pounds of veggie chili, and then next up after this is burrito mix. Those are kind of my 3 staples for meals in the backcountry. But yeah, so they're only one of each of those trays. How I've gotten around that is by buying these dehydrator sheets. I think they're made of Teflon, yeah. It's a pack of 9-pack of 14 by 14 sheets. The dehydrator is not 14 by 14. But the thing is, these are easily cut. So I just cut a hole in the middle of each sheet for this middle piece, and that's where air comes up through the middle of the dehydrator and circulates all around, so it's important to not block that. And then I cut it to the size of the tray. So that's how I got around that. It wasn't bad. It was quite easy to do, and this pack of sheets wasn't too expensive. Plus you can use them for regular baking if you don't cut a hole in the middle of them. And they're good as, instead of aluminum foil, which we don't use, or even parchment, I think this is a better alternative because these should last forever, and they're non-stick, so they're pretty useful. And they fill that problem for me in the dehydrator. When you use the trays that come with it, or these sheets, it's really inhibiting the airflow. So things will take a lot longer to dry, and the distribution won't be as even, because it's designed to have like this perfect airflow through all the grates, and you're just blocking that right up. So things will take a lot longer. It's important to move them around, stir it halfway, stir it again closer to the end, and I actually like to get in there with my fingers and feel everything, kind of just mix it up with my fingers and make sure it's dry to the touch, because any amount of water, moisture left behind in here can ruin your entire batch and allow mold to build. And similarly with meats, I don't dehydrate much meat anymore. I've done chicken, beef, and pork, and I'm not really that into it. With beef, you need to cook it first and then pour boiling hot water all over it to try and get rid of all the fat. Fat does not dehydrate, so that can, if you have a lot of fat left on it, it can cause your entire batch of food to go rancid. And that would be a huge shame, because dehydrating is a lot of work. It is so much easier to just pick off a package of, all these beautiful meals that they have nowadays in dehydrated packs. But they're so expensive. They're brutally expensive. $15 for 1 pack, and it says that it feeds 2 people, but not if you've worked up an appetite in the backcountry. It feeds 1 person if you're really hungry. But I've really shied away from dehydrating meats because it's more work, more expensive, and it's just a good opportunity to sample a vegetarian lifestyle when you're out there. We eat meat sometimes. Like I might bring a steak for day 1. If temperatures are cool, I might bring eggs or something like that. But out there I can get fresh fish. I can get meat in the most sustainable way possible. So generally I'm moving toward that end of the spectrum and just dehydrating vegetable-based things for meals. And that's what you really lack out there. The meat, like I say, you can get that out there if you like fish. Vegetables are much harder to get. You might get like fiddleheads at some point early in the season, blueberries later in the season, but it's hit and miss. Like we did a 2-week trip in Quetico last year, and we barely found a blueberry in August. It was crazy. It must have been super dry. The upside was we got virtually no bugs. But yeah, you can't really depend on it, so it's really nice to have the veggies with you, especially as you get older. I find now, like well into my 30s, My body needs a lot of vegetables. If I don't eat vegetables, I feel like garbage. I can't eat like I did when I was in school, you know? So it's just the nicest thing to have out there. Speaking of Quetico, I'll show some pictures here of all of our food for 2 weeks for 2 people. So I think that was 90 meals. Let's say 15 days times 2 people times 3 meals a day is 90. So that was a ton of food to fit in our 60-liter food barrel, and we had to think more about being space conscious and dehydrating things, getting it down to minimum size and weight than we ever have before. One other thing that I found is key for the dehydrator is a huge bag like this, an oversized Ziploc. When food is done, I slip the entire tray in there and dump, and I can scrape it off too if I want. If you don't have this big bag, it's surprisingly difficult to get everything into some kind of container without spilling crumbs all over. If you're talking about like dehydrated chili, little beans are scampering away, and it can be hard to get them out of here into one container. So this I find extremely helpful for that purpose. So that veggie curry, this is it. This is, I think it was about 20 pounds. There was a 10-pound bag of potatoes in there, diced pretty finely because potatoes are kind of tough to dehydrate, but I love them. Out in the backcountry, they rehydrate, and they're kind of chewy, but they're like in a really nice way. Not the best thing to dehydrate, but man, I really love them. But that was 20 pounds, 3 large pots on the stove, cooking up a big batch of veggie curry. I don't have like dehydrator specific recipes. Just avoid recipes that have a lot of fat, oil. If you're doing pasta sauce, normally I would buy 4 cheese pasta sauce. You want to avoid things like cheese because they're oily and they're not going to dehydrate well. A marinara would be much better. This is 3 pots of chili. Again, like just hard to believe how much smaller it gets. And this should last, I mean, I probably use 2 cups per meal for myself of dehydrated stuff. So 2 cups, I don't know, there's maybe 20 cups in there. So that'd be 10 meals for me. Here are some vegetables that I dehydrate stand alone, and I'll often use them in non-calzones, or I can throw them in pasta sauce if I just want to like freshen it up. And week into a trip, let's say, if I want to just need an infusion of veggies, then I can just throw things in. So I do spinach. This is a non-calzone mix, which I tried. It's onion, mushroom, bell peppers, tomato, spinach, and the pizza sauce itself, but I don't like it. The pizza sauce being in there, it just makes everything taste like tomatoes, whereas if you rehydrate all the vegetables together, it's actually a beautiful flavor. The medley, if you want to call it that, they complement each other so well when you rehydrate all those vegetables together. But I would do the pizza sauce separately. Onion, that's like 6 large onions, I think, right there. Tomatoes, little grape tomatoes, I cut them into quarters, or if they're a large grape tomato, like a sixth, because you want them nice and small. These can be tough. You can get pockets that really close themselves off and hold in the moisture, and you could have your whole batch is done, and then a couple of tomatoes are just hardly dehydrated at all. So you want to kind of squish them and get that liquid out of them. And I try and keep all the seeds. I keep that mush that comes out of a tomato. I've heard it's quite healthy, so I try to make sure that I want to expose it to air in the dehydrator, but I also want to keep it for its nutrients. And here's a bit of ground beef that we have left over from last season. People call it gravel because it has the texture of gravel. It's just rough and dry, hard. And it's nice to have out there, but like I say, I've kind of gone away from the beef. If you want to do chicken, make sure the chicken is pressure cooked. If you get canned chicken, just like a can of tuna, I never buy canned chicken. I thought it was weird, but I bought it last year to try it, and the dehydrator works way better than if you just try and cook chicken in the pan and then dehydrate it, and it'll rehydrate faster as well. So make sure it's pressure cooked. One other thing we liked in the meat department is cutting up sausages pretty thinly and dehydrating them that way and throwing them into pasta. just freshen it up, kind of like meatballs. And I also really like to dehydrate mushrooms, cremini mushrooms, but I've been waiting for them to go on sale at the grocery store so I can do a huge batch of them, so that's why they're not in here yet. And the same goes for pineapple. Dehydrated pineapple is heaven. We love it so much. We tried all kinds of fruits. We tried watermelon and apple and tangerine, and some of them are not good. Like tangerines dehydrated were pretty terrible, surprisingly. You would wonder how. Pineapples, I don't know if it's just the way the sugar in them, it caramelizes beautifully, and it just has such a great flavor, and it really tastes like pineapple. It's really like a punch in the face of flavor. So that's our favorite, but I'm waiting for pineapples to go on sale here. In Northern Ontario, produce is pretty expensive, and like a small pineapple is $5. And yeah, I want to do like 10 pineapples, so that'd just be expensive. So I wait. I'm big on keeping notes, especially for lists for camping, and dehydrating in meals is no different. I've got a huge list here of stuff I like to make, and temperatures and instructions for dehydrating, like a summary. So this is the summary for things that are 125 degrees when you dehydrate them. Another list for things that you dehydrate at 135 degrees Fahrenheit. So I'll share this below, and I think it's a useful summary that took me some time to build up. When I was starting out in dehydrating, I really enjoyed Kevin Outdoors' videos, so I'd recommend checking his stuff out if you want more in-depth tutorials on specific meals or things to dehydrate. And then there was another website, I think it's called Backpacking Chef, and I found that quite useful when I was starting out as well. A lot of this info is just summarized from them. So here's a list of meals that I bring on a week-long trip. In no particular order: veggie burritos, wraps, so just like sliced cheese, salami, mayo, and mustard are nice if you can bring them. Chili with garlic bread is really nice to complement it. Non-calzones, we've seen that a few times. I will often dehydrate the pizza sauce, but on a shorter trip I can get away without it. I have had it go bad once, not doing that, so something to watch out for. Fresh fish, you can do fish tacos if you want. Cheese and crackers. I love having cheese and crackers because it's not horribly packaged food. Like, it's not just preserved. It can sit on a shelf forever. I think it's a reasonably healthy snack on the go that's pretty satisfying. Veggie curry, Kraft dinner, of course, mac and cheese. Ramen noodles are nice. It's nice if you can bring like an egg and do an egg drop soup or some green onion. Throw some fresh veggies in there. Pasta and dehydrated sauce. It's just a cheap staple. I just bought like a 900 gram, 2 pound bag of penne on sale for $1. So that goes a long way on a budget. Some people will pre-cook their pasta and then dehydrate it, and then it takes a little less time and gas canister of fuel, perhaps, if you're using a gas can, to rehydrate it. But for me, that's not worth the work. I cook on a fire, so I'm not worried about fuel consumption. And save a couple minutes. The penne I buy cooks in, I think, 8 minutes, so like that's perfectly reasonable to me. Erin's breakfast bars, which is like a combination of oats, peanut butter, honey, shredded coconut, and chocolate chips. It's really good. You don't even have to bake it. You just mix it all together and put it in the fridge. Shredded cheese, I bring a bag of that on trips. You would think it would go bad. I've never had it go bad. Even on up to 12 days, I've had a bag of shredded cheese and it didn't go bad. Instant potatoes are nice once in a while. I don't usually bring them, but on a longer trip, it's just something easy to bring to change things up a little bit. Naan bread with Indian sauce. They have like these Indian sauce packets, and that's always a crowd pleaser. That's super easy. You just dump in the packet. It's not lightweight because it's liquid, but you just heat it up and toast some naan bread, dip it in there. Everybody's happy. Just add water, pancake mix, popcorn kernels, and seasoning. Great snack around the campfire in the evening. Snack bars or chocolate bars, always nice to have. Chips or crispers. I bring scotch in a platypus bladder, a 1 liter bladder, which I don't always fill, but on a long trip then I might. I bring tea, coffee, and powdered milk. And then in this little bag I keep just some essentials like spices and coffee and tea. Yeah, just some tea packages, instant coffee, salt, pepper, and then either Tex-Mex or salmon spice, whichever one I feel like bringing for fish. For fish, I'll sometimes batter them in fish crisp or whatever you like. But it takes a lot of oil to do that properly and to kind of deep fry it. So more often I'll just lightly pan fry it with a little bit of oil and then spices. So that's my crash course in eating and dehydrating for the backcountry, and I'll put all those lists that I mentioned below.